here we are again negotiating the debt ceiling. When President Obama was in office, the Republicans would hold the debt ceiling hostage and they would say, oh no, we need concessions from the Democrats. If we don't get concessions, Congress is not going to approve it. We don't care that you have a Democratic president, we have a Republican Congress. We're not going to approve the debt ceiling. Concessions, we want concessions. And the Democrats would have to negotiate and give them concessions. Okay, it's okay, now the Republicans are in charge. They have the White House and Congress. So you guess what they're demanding? Concessions from Democrats. Listen to Lindsey Graham.
Let's play in politics with the majority for a change. We've been on defense ever since I've been up there. We've got the floor. We can determine what comes to the floor. Let's take some hard votes. Let's make Democrats say no to raise the debt ceiling, no to funding the troops, no to helping veterans. See how many of them break. I don't know why we don't do that, and I think that's what President Trump is saying.
So now that we control Congress and the White House completely, let's make the Democrats pay a price. Earlier when they controlled the White House, let's make the Democrats pay a price. Sounds like a broken record. And the hypocrisy, they're Republicans, they don't care about it. Like that bothers other human beings. To them, they're like, you're just being rational, which is silly of you. So back when Obama was in charge, the conservative outlet National Review wrote this: President Obama is demanding that Congress raise the debt ceiling in the next 2 weeks without offering any restraint on future debt. Given an $18 trillion national debt, that's a recipe for fiscal disaster. Okay, wait, so back when Obama was saying let's raise the debt ceiling, that was a disaster. Guys, I'm actually gonna go out of order here. Let's go to video 3. Now this is Paul Ryan. He's the Speaker of the House for the Republicans. So I was told by the National Review that we cannot raise the debt ceiling. That would be a fiscal disaster. Let's go to Paul Ryan.
I'm really not that worried about this. We have plenty of options ahead of us. We will pay our debts and we will make the debt limit. We will hit the increase before this is penetrated, meaning we will pass a debt limit increase before we hit the debt limit. Plenty of options in front of us.
Do those options include a clean hike of the debt ceiling?
There's a bunch of different options in front of us. I'm not going to kind of negotiate to the media, but we have a lot of options in front of us. I'm really not worried about getting this done because I know we will get this done and we will pass the increase before we hit the debt limit.
Okay, the debt limit is going to raise. Well, I thought it was a fiscal disaster before. Now it's fiscal genius move, apparently. They don't care about hypocrisy. Back then, the National Review wrote, the administration is using the debt limit to put taxpayers between a rock and a hard place, either authorize more debt or face a financial crisis and government shutdown that will be orchestrated by the president. You know what, again, I'm gonna go out of order here. Let's go to video 1. This is Donald Trump in Phoenix just the other night, talking about, what is he doing? He is going to orchestrate a government shutdown to put people between a rock and a hard wall. Watch.
Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall.
Hypocrisy much? Okay, we're not done yet. I've got one more compilation, which is a J.R. Jackson special about all the times that they went after Obama for. He wants to raise the debt ceiling. Oh, and he wants things in return. That's outrageous. That's outrageous. Keep in mind that now Donald Trump is saying, hey man, I'm going to hold things hostage until you give me that wall. Now watch what they said under Obama.
What he's guilty of is anti-democracy arrogance. There's always a negotiation around raising the debt limit, usually around budget issues.
I don't need to hear any crap from Harry Reid about bipartisanship. He doesn't know bipartisanship, nor does the president. And one other thing, this debt default, if the president instructs the Treasury Secretary though the money is there to pay interest, if he instructs him to default, I think we're getting close to a high crime and misdemeanor that would harm this country.
Right? I mean, look, this president is just simply grasping for straws.
Look, in part, Congress helped create this problem, but we are going to now solve this problem. I got elected to uphold the Constitution and to leave this country better than how we found it. We can't keep spending our kids' inheritance. I mean, we can't keep spending their money.
And this is why Republicans should be obstructionist. Obamacare is bad for our health. Big government's bad for the economy. And my view is if the Republicans aren't defunding one and shutting down the other, what's the point of electing Republicans? I mean, we keep hearing about the bad politics of the Republicans acting obstructionist in this way, but I think much worse politics for Republicans would be to get to 2014 and say, oh yeah, Obamacare's in full flower and the government's much larger. Why did we put them in power in 2010 to begin with?
Well, that's a great point. This president has proven that he will do almost anything to protect the size and the scope of Washington, D.C.'s burgeoning bureaucracy, including to threaten the economic security of every American by backing us up to the edge of default.
Well, I think the person, David, who is guilty of extortion is President Obama, if you look over the last 3 years.
And I think part of the reason Speaker Boehner, others we got ourselves into trouble is we listened too much to Harry Reid and the president. We should do what we believe in.
And it's a form of extortion that's been particularly cruel to the poor and the elderly who rely on fixed income. So the president is the one who's committed extortion here, and he's hurt the poor and the elderly the most.
The reality is we have to stop spending money we don't have, and you got to attack entitlement reform and you got to attack discretionary spending.
Again, obstructionism doesn't look good on nightly news, but the fact is that it has helped lower the cost of government dramatically. Yeah, David, it's the only good thing that's happened in recent years for the economy. Less resources are being drawn out.
So if the president instructs to default, it, according to Mitch McConnell, that threatens economic security. And back when they were doing the obstruction of President Obama, well, that's the only thing protecting the economy. Now they're saying, oh, we need the Democrats because this needs to be filibuster proof. We need 8 Democrats. How dare they do obstruction? But my favorite were the two about how could the president get us this close to a government shutdown because of the debt ceiling. That is extortion that hurts the poor and the elderly most. And if he instructs us to default, according to Louis Gohmert, it would be a high crime and misdemeanor. Now, let me see President Trump one more time.
Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall.
What was that about high crimes and misdemeanors? TYT membership gets you commercial-free Young Turks. Download it, stream it, podcast it, get all the network shows, and support independent media. TYTnetwork.com/join.